mentoring community, all things a mentoring lounge where we have discussions, sometimes debates, and certainly conversations about mentor, mentee, mentorship, and the process, the educating approach of mentoring. I'm Dr. Stephen Hobbs. I'm one of the co-founders. Doug Lawrence is with me today. And we're going to share a bit of a retrospective of 2022. That's where we're going on today's topic. And we'll introduce ourselves just in a little bit. But I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of where we're going today. We're going to go over our definition of mentoring, which is our tradition as we open up the Mentoring Lounge. And then what we're going to do is take a look at what happened in 2022 in terms of the videos. We actually produced 50 videos, and we're just going to go over what they're about. Doug and I are going to share some ideas about what we thought was kind of profound about 2022 that would carry over into 2023. And then we've got some plans for 2023 that we're going to be inviting you to get involved with. And we thought that we would just go over a few of those and see if you've got any comments, and you can do that live. Or you can catch up with the comments afterwards if you're watching this broadcast later. So, Doug, I think it's time for us to introduce who we are, and then we'll take a look at the definition. So, you want to introduce yourself?
I sure can. So I'm Doug Lawrence. I'm one of the co-founders of the International Mentoring Community. And I also have my own business, Talent C, which is basically the practice of mentoring and focused on all things mentoring. And with the International Mentoring Community, I am the Director of Practice and Outreach.
Wonderful. And again, Stephen Hobbs, I am the Director of Education and Certification. So in many ways, you enter in via Doug, you end up with me as I take you through the process and get you ready for the audit or the verification, depending on what certificate you're going for. And I have my own company, Wealth Movement, WELLTH Movement. And I am interested in olders to be elders who serve as mentors. And Doug, you tend to lean into what area connecting with mentoring?
Primarily with the mental health space.
Yeah, and Doug is very much a deep practitioner. His business certainly is into the mentoring. I tend to come at it a little bit more from the concepts, education point of view. And that's why Doug and I have many conversations as he brings out the stories of the practices. And that's how we've come together. Now, what we're going to do is just share with you our definition of mentoring that we use at the International Mentoring Community. And after that definition, I'm actually going to bring you up to date with something that has just happened. And just to give you a sense of an overview before we actually get into the body of our broadcast today. So, Doug, you want to just give the definition?
I sure can. So mentoring is a two-way trusted relationship where the mentor and mentee learn and grow together through personal and professional development.
You want to pick up on anything in particular there that might have a leaning into 2023?
Well, pretty much the whole statement does. So
for sure.
The trusted relationship is important, and the mentor and the mentee learning and growing together is important. And the fact that it touches on personal and professional development is also important. And I think if there's any one thing that really is of significance, it's the understanding that mentoring is about personal and professional growth. And where that plays in is the mental health space.
For sure. And it does play itself into the olders to elders, because some of the elders may look at putting a shingle out and saying, I am going to be a mentor based on my lived experience, and off they go. So how might we help them to figure out how to approach that in a more professional way, I think is certainly a story that underpins certification. And we'll be talking more about that in the new year for sure. But I thought I would just share what's the update, what's going on. We have something that is preparing us for 2023, and that is that we have shifted the website name. Now, the website is going to be called mentorpractices.com. So the international mentoring community.com will point to that. And the information that we have shared over the last number of years will all be there. It just happens to have a different website name. Now, Doug and I decided to do this because we thought that mentor practices would be more of a description that would enlighten, liven up, put the light on the path that we're encouraging those who would be involved with mental health, those who would be olders to elders, those who would look at mentoring as a way in which to be for the world, with the planet, and from the whole. And so we thought that we would do that, open that up. So the international mentoring community is more where we're having conversations around the certification and where you want to do the certification. The mentor practices is very much like what we're doing with these broadcasts. So we'll be picking up the pace. We'll be creating more places for people to understand about the practices of mentoring and therefore the concepts that go with that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and we'll certainly pick that up with the Mentoring Lounge as we go into 2023. So just as a hint, today's broadcast is the last for 2022. We're going to take the next 2 weeks off and then come back in the first week of January, the first Wednesday of January. And at 10 a.m. Mountain, we'll open up the lounge and invite you to join us again. And for that, we thought we would just sort of do this retrospective, this summary of what took place in 2022. So we actually went back and took a look at some of the videos, and we sort of figured out what sort of tickled the viewers like yourself. And then we thought we would just sort of share what we each saw as sort of important topics that came out of 2022, and then share some plans for 2023. So Doug, I think what I will do is I'll just go over how many videos we shot, what were most of the main topics about, what tickled our audience, and then I'll have you jump in and talk about what was sort of profound out of 2022's videos that you picked up on and that you wanted to share. Is that okay?
Sure.
All righty. So the number of videos that we shot in 2022 and put up on the International Mentoring Community YouTube channel was 50. So today would actually mark 51. And that coincides for the sort of like the number of weeks, because we shot one video in there, which was an interview with Doug about his book. And your book was called, their latest book that came out was called, Doug?
You Are Not Alone.
And it's a great book. I certainly recommend it to take a look at, read, and weave into your life. There's lots of pearls of wisdom in there that you can pick up on, and there is that video in the series. So by the time we're done, we will have shot 50 plus the one, so 50 of the International Mentoring Community and the one that's linked to Doug and his book. Now, of the 50 that we have shot so far, tools and techniques, from an overall perspective, there was 16 of those. When we are chatting about mentor and mentee and their connection and arrangement, there was 20 of those. And mentorship, where we're talking about the business of mentoring, the domain, the bigger picture of mentoring, even topics like certification. And when Doug and I got into our specific topics, there was 14 of those videos. So that makes up the 50 that have been shot, and today's makes up the 51. So we would probably consider that about mentorship, Doug. So there would be actually 15 in 2022. So if you like math, you can go back and figure out what just took place. I'm using a lot of numbers there, but the topics are consistent with sort of how the profile that we use for certification unfolds, because there's 7 main categories, and mentor and mentee and mentorship and tools and techniques are many of those categories in the profile. So it made sense that we were sort of following that path as we were having things unfold. Now, what tickled you, the audience, one in particular was the 7 tools and techniques, and it actually received the most views. And it was about 7 tools, techniques that we use in mentoring that Doug and I thought would be of value. We shot that on October the 5th. So if you want to go to International Mentoring Community at YouTube, you can certainly pick it up there. The next one that sort of caught people's imaginations was about the certification. And that was on October the 19th. Even though we've been talking about certification throughout the year, it seems that October 19th sort of picked it up. Now, I suspect, Doug, that what's happening is people are starting to figure out certification and mentoring. There's something there that they're wanting to explore. And I think it was just timely. It came out at a point where people picked up on it. And I think tools and techniques and certification is really going to pick up in 2023, okay? And now I also want to just mention is that we shot a video in March about coaching and mentoring, and we did it through the lens of connection, competition, and collaboration. And that picked up quite a few views. I think Doug and I thought that would. It did. I think it's something that we could probably take a look at doing a little bit more in 2023, making that connection. Now, just before we go into what's profound from Doug's perspective, I would just like to also acknowledge is that we've done a name shift in our certification. So now we have what is called the Certificate of Concepts Mentoring. So if you just want to learn about mentoring and the concepts behind it, then you can do that certificate. But we also have the Certificate of Practice Mentor, where we go over the concepts and the practices of what it means to be a mentor. And then if you want to move forward, then you can do the Certificate of Practice Journey Mentor, which is a very viable certificate that opens up where you can actually go about doing mentoring. Now, often people pick up on mentoring from a lived experience and they do it because of what they know. But I believe, and I think Doug, you'd agree with me here, that Journey Mentor, so from an overview, using in mental health or using in elders and elder storylines, the notion of journey to assist others along their journey is important. And sometimes people will say, oh, isn't that life coaching? Okay, I believe it's actually different. They complement each other, right? There is a connection, there is a competition, and there is a collaboration. But I think if you came in and looked at Journey Mentor the way that we share it, you would see a deep, rich connection arrangement starts to unfold as we use Journey Mentor. Now, is there anything you want to add to that storyline or agreement, disagreement, anything? This is the time where we might get into a discussion or debate. I never know. Doug, your thoughts?
So for me, it always has been. It's about the journey and what does the journey look like, and I think what's taken place is that you can have a journey mentor who is working in the mental health space, but you can have another journey mentor who may be working with elders or other, other people in different areas. And so the journey mentor concept can actually have somewhat of a specialization idea behind it. And so I know that we typically, when we first started this journey with the journey mentor, we talked about it being to the journey mentor would help guide people through the certification process was number one. And number two, which was probably closer to my heart, was the aspect of the mental health and getting people so that they can be part of that support structure. And that's, from my perspective, that's how I saw that unfolding.
For sure. Great. Well, thanks for adding that in. And again, please ask us about the certification and what we can offer, and we'll certainly support you. Again, add your comments. There are chat functions open. And if you're listening to this afterwards, then again, add to the comment section. We do go through and we check things as the videos go out, and we do that over a couple of months, right? Catching up where we can. So, Doug, I think what would be helpful is I had asked you to think about what you thought was profound about the 2022 videos. And you came up with a couple of thoughts you'd like to share, and I thought that I would do something that's similar. So this is from our head, heart, and hands. So Doug, your thoughts here.
So for me, there was, as you mentioned, a couple things that sort of jumped out. And the first was the aspect of, and it was definitely fueled by the videos that we had done, the 51 videos that was put out. But what I saw was the growth of mentoring as a business solution. It for so long it lacked momentum, and now I'm starting to see where it's starting to gain momentum. And where I'm seeing that is in organizations where what they are doing is, as part of their strategic planning process, they're now including mentoring, the implementation of mentoring, and what does that look like, and the training and all of that stuff. They're now starting to make that a part of their overall strategic plan for the organization going forward. And I can think, off the top of my head, 2 or 3 organizations that have reached out to us that have said, what does that look like? What's the business value that would give us if we invest in doing that, and all of those things. So that's the first. The second is the aspect of the awareness of mental health and of mentoring together. And that awareness has sort of lifted that up and sort of pointed it in a direction. And what it's meant for, certainly when we talk about tools and techniques and those videos, is that to be able to be a mentor working with somebody who is dealing with mental health challenges and knowing when to speak and when to listen, that has helped elevate some of those skill sets to a higher plane, and getting people to understand and appreciate that. And because it is a transferable skill, it can be used in a number of different areas.
Great. Okay. Well, a couple of things that certainly came out for me was this, the unfolding of the mentor stories. We tend to share about the mentor, and at the same time, to improve focus and strengthen the mentor, the mentee is also improved focus and strengthened. And we kept always saying that. And the reason being is that often mentees become mentors later. But as the definition suggests, mentees can become the mentors in the connection and arrangement that's there, especially if it goes over a longer period of time. So we kept sharing that perspective going through, and I kept thinking to myself, that is still a profound awareness that we have to keep sharing. It's sort of like 2 sides of a coin, right? if you mentor and you have a mentee and you have a mentee and you have a mentor, you are improve focusing and strengthening both of them, and you do it together. And I think that that's something that we stand in, we walk with. Sometimes we ride, cycle here through the international mentoring community and off the new website that will be unfolding of mentorpractices.com. So that's one thing I wanted to share. The second thing is, I believe that too, this business notion that Doug is talking about as well. 2023 is going to be kind of an interesting one, and I think it proved itself out in 2022 about an appetite for tools and techniques. There are technologies, I granted, there are many different mentoring in the workplace programs where technology is at the forefront of matching and keeping track of what's going on. But the notion of assisting the mentor, thus the mentee and the mentee with the mentor, right, making that connection again, is tools and techniques are going to be really important. And they were in 2022 because they were a lot of the videos that picked up the most views. And I think that if there's anything of learning, is those videos that we shot that had a specific how-to that went with them seemed to pick up just a little bit more viewership than if we were just chatting about that. So for me, that is something that I thought was profound. That is something to carry forward. So similar to Doug carrying forward what he's suggesting, carrying forward what I'm suggesting brings us into the plans of 2023. So I think that that sets us up to maybe chat about those, Doug. Is that okay?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, well, there's 5 broad areas that we wanted to share with you today. The first one is, again, to remind you, there's a website renaming. It is now mentorpractices.com, but international mentoring community still points towards mentorpractices.com. But the story will come out is that we'll be taking a look at more about the practices the mentor uses, thus the mentee can use as well, in support of this educating approach called mentoring, the process, the system of mentoring. And we're going to do that in some different sort of ways. We're going to take a look at it in different kinds of workshops that I'll mention here a little bit later, and how we're going to sort of unfold these mentoring lounge broadcasts as well. So I just wanted to remind you about the website renaming. And the second point I wanted to raise is that we maintain the international mentoring community as a way in which to bring people together around the certification and thus the growing and the development and learning about the concepts and practices. But Doug and I, if we had our druther, we would love to get a community up and get it going so that it doesn't appear is that this is the Doug and Steven show. And we would love to create the community. We're going to do whatever we can, get that community up and operating and supporting the world and mentoring around the world. The third point that I'd just like to make is that as we move forward, we're going to use certain kinds of word phrasings. So, for example, what we want to do is acknowledge, advance, and amplify concepts. So you got to acknowledge the concepts are there. You want to advance those concepts and be able to amplify those concepts. And I say that is because there's a lot of people say, coaching and mentoring are the same thing. Nope. We've got to acknowledge, advance, and amplify that mentoring is mentoring, right? Coaching is coaching. Yes, there is some weaving together, but we have to define those terms and concepts and agree on them so that when they go to get used in the practices, thus to improve focus and strengthen the practices of mentoring, all right, which is what we want to do, is how do you improve focus and strengthen those? Then you know that if you understand the concepts and understand the practices and you agree to those, then when you mentor, you mentor. When you coach, you coach. And if you are mentoring and you want to do coaching, then you would say, well, I've been mentoring. I think I'm going to move into a little bit of coaching here, and vice versa, or instructing or training, is to be clear for the person you're interacting with so that they understand which approach you're using. Now, through mentor practices, we're leaning into mentoring, but we also talk about the wings, like coaching and facilitating and instructing. It's not like we're throwing those out, we bring them in, but our main thrust here is when you mentor, and how do the others then support that? That's where we're going. So at the end of the day, we'll constantly be using this notion of connection, competition, and collaboration. It's one of the lenses that we'll look through. So how does mentoring connect with mental health? How might it be in competition with mental health practices? How might it collaborate with mental health? The same thing for those who are olders to elders from a lifestyle point of view. It's like that from a coaching point of view. So we will use lenses like that to support it as we bring it forward. And what Doug and I thought we would do is there's about 4 mentoring lounge presentations that occur during a month. And what we thought we would do is we would certainly do a deeper dive into practices for 2 of those, and 2 would have sort of concepts, a little bit more in a concept, might have a little bit of practice that goes with it. But there are issues that are coming out in the world that would require a conversation around how does mentoring support that, mentorship support that. And maybe there might be a product review of a new technology that's out there, and we may want to bring it forward. So we're going to sort of look at it from a 2 to 2. 2 certainly about the concepts into practices, and 2 around concepts in a very general way. That's our plan. You never know. It could end up we would do 8 in a row of practices. Well, I don't know. We'll see how things unfold. And this is where we're going to ask you in the comments section, use the contact page, the comments, right? Figure out how you want to get to us, your thoughts. We would certainly appreciate those. They'll guide us as we move forward. Now, 2 last things we'd like to just mention is that there will be what are called weekend workshops. There'll be a 4-hour and an 8-hour. So the 4-hour would go something like 2 hours Saturday morning with a break, 2 hours. The 8-hour one would be Saturday, Sunday. So 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, all right, with a break. And those workshops are where you actually get to interact with Doug and I. We are here to give you feed forward. You actually get responses from us from questions that are being asked around what it is that we're sharing. So, for example, one of them will be about how do you prep for the certification process. That would be a 4 or 8 hour. We'll let you know. Sometimes we may do it quickly. Sometimes we may take a little bit more time. Another one might be about the creation, the writing, the entry, the summaries, the reflections of a mentoring log, because that becomes really important for persons as well. Now, another thing might be how might you create a hook story offer about mentoring if you're opening up a mentoring business? So Doug and I can chat a little bit about what was the hook stories and offers that we made. But there's also, all right, might be of support if you're someone listening in and you are inside a bigger organization, a corporation, a government department, a charitable organization, whatever kind of organization it might be, and you're looking for, well, what's the hook story ask for mentoring inside the organization? we'll do a workshop on that one as well. So for the ones about your business approach and the one for corporations, we might start with the 4 hours so we can just go over those. And if we need to go deeper dives, then we'll open up an 8-hour one, but we'll be advertising those. So you can see the mentor practice storyline coming out through those workshops. And the fifth point for 2023, and then I'll ask Doug to jump in with anything that he wants to add here, because I know he's got some books and I've got some books that are coming out in 2023. But the fifth important point, we're actually going to be creating a nine. Let's change that O to an I and get to 9. A 9-module course with videos and handouts that support those who appreciate coming to a course to learn about mentoring rather than going to the library that we have or going out on the internet. They would love to come to a course. And we will start it off in a cohort format. So we'll probably do 3 of those in 2023, and you can join the cohort and come through. And then eventually we'll get it up so that it's in an evergreen and you can jump in and just do it at your own pace. But probably in 2024, if the need is still there, we'll probably do a cohort. Some people like to learn in cohorts. In other words, you come together with other learners, other mentors and learning. Some people go, I'm okay with an evergreen. I'll just sign up for it and complete it when I want to. But we'll also do this cohort, this evergreen system for in organizations as well. We will put that together. We call it mentoring for the workplace. And it's how you bring mentoring in so that you have this mentoring movement happens inside your organization, of which if you want to do the certification to support it, you can. So those are the 9-module online course, cohort to evergreen, both outside and inside organizations. Talked a little bit about the weekend workshops, some of the key word phrasings that we're going to use as we move forward, the importance of certification. And we just want to remind you, we have done a website renaming to sort of align more with what it is we're going to be doing as we move forward. Always knowing the international mentoring community is there as we establish a community about mentoring on an international basis. Is there anything in that update, those plans for 2023, Doug? But also mention you've got a book coming out, don't you?
The book will be probably March-ish. So I'm very, very close to finish the writing in that for the book. And we've got the book cover and that already designed. And wow, what a great job the graphic artist did to pull this together. And it kind of feeds off of the You Are Not Alone book as well. So anyhow, yeah, that's coming out, hopefully, like I said, sometime in March.
Wonderful. My latest book on mentoring is called Mentoring Now, which is Mentor Within, Mentoring Without. And that will be in more of a workbook journal format until I get a little bit more feed forward with others to find out what they would like to see. And if it requires more of that workbook journal format, great. If people are asking for like a little bit more stories or something like that, then I think Doug and I will get together and figure out some stories we'll put into that one. But the way that I tend to write is action outcome style books where there is a bit more workbook, notebook, journal kind of formatting that you just sort of open up and you can work on it on a day-to-day basis or over the course of a number of months. So that's where we're going. Is there anything about other plans about 2023 you want to mention, Doug, before we aim to close?
Nothing that's at a stage that I would want to share with our listeners.
Are you saying there's some mystery to come?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. A little bit of mystery and just sort of dangling out there. That's always a lot of fun as well. So I think you can see 2023 is going to be kind of a fun time, and we would certainly encourage you to do that. That's why today I just want to acknowledge is that I wore my writing hoodie, right? Because I've been writing this morning and creating a whole bunch of things, and I just decided I'm not going to put on my jacket today. I'm going to be in my hoodie. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes it's my black one. My brown one is the one where I do a lot of writing in, because it just reminds me, all right, of the trunk of the tree and the roots, and how do I get into that. So it's just one of my ways of writing. So I think, Doug, with that, I think we're getting towards close, and the way that we do this is that tradition is I bring everyone in. Doug gets to take us out, and what he does is he just shares a thought or two from the broadcast, and when I know he's done, I just say, take care, and we end the broadcast. So, Doug, it's over to you.
So the big thing, we've shared some really interesting things that we're looking at or talking about for 2023. And so I encourage our listeners to, what I want you to do as one of our followers and one of our listeners is I want you to pick 2 things that you want to see for 2023 and shoot us a message to that effect and say, okay, I want to see this take place in 2023 as it relates to mentoring, but pick 2 things and send those off to us, and we'll share those in the new year, and we'll obviously take a look at how can we help you put those things into practice.
Great. And I should just mention, I'm going to just break a little bit of a tradition just to remind us, Wednesdays, the first Wednesday in January, 10 a.m. Mountain Time is when the Mentoring Lounge opens up, and we certainly love to see you there. So with that, Doug, okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.